Hey guys, how's it going? My name is I'm Cloudy and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the new game mode Gambit, some tips I have, and some personal loadouts I recommend playing or using for the game mode. So first off, I want to go over basically explaining what the game mode is, some maybe deeper details you may not know about it, but let's get started. So Gambit is a new game mode introduced in Destiny 2's Forsaken DLC. It is a 4v4 PvE and PvP game mode where you have two sets of teams with 4 members, and they're in arenas separated, and the objective of the game is to kill enemies, collect motes, bank those motes, invade the enemy's arena and kill guardians, and then spawn and kill a primeval as soon as possible. So I'm going to be going over a little more in detail about that. So first, to kill the primeval wins the round, best 2 out of 3 win the game. How do you get motes? You get motes by killing enemies, and each enemy gives you a specific amount of motes. So like a red bar will give you 1 and like a yellow bar will give you 5. This is not including blockers, which I'll explain later. Invading guardians will drop motes depending on how many he or she is holding. So if you invade the other side's team, or if you invade the other side's arena with a stack of 10 motes and you get killed, then you drop 10 motes and they can collect them. And after you kill the enemies, you can get a maximum of 15 motes in your inventory at any time. And there is a benefit to holding out to that long, but it's also a high risk reward situation. So I'll explain that in a second. So blockers, I mentioned it earlier. Blockers are essentially, if you deposit a certain amount of motes at a time, then you can lock the enemy's base, spawn an enemy, and then they have to kill that enemy before the base unlocks again. So bank blockers essentially. So if you deposit 5 motes, you would drop a small blocker, 10 motes gets you a medium blocker, and 15 gives you a large blocker. That large blocker is the strongest and the hardest to kill, but not the most annoying, and I'll tell you more about that later. So essentially, if you can get up to 15 motes of light and wait to deposit it, not only will you lock the enemy's base, spawn a yellow bar enemy, you will also run the risk of dying. And essentially, if you have any amount of motes and you die any way in the game, whether it's to an ad or a enemy guardian, you lose those motes. You basically have to start over from 0. So blocking is essential to winning, but also I wouldn't recommend waiting till 15. Moving on, once you get a stack of 25, not at the same time, but once your team deposits 25 motes, you unlock a invasion portal, which will allow one guardian to invade the enemy side for about 30 seconds or until they die, whichever comes first. And then the objective of the game is finding the primeval that spawns at 75 motes, and first to kill this primeval basically wins the game, or wins the round rather. And the primeval, just think of it as like a mini boss, like a high level yellow bar with maybe 1 or 2 mechanics. From the 24-hour Gambit, he had like 2 wizards that gave him health and stuff or something like that. I didn't play it too much, but think of it like that. Kill enemies, collect the motes, bank those motes, invade the other side, kill guardians, and then summon and kill the primeval as fast as possible. First to kill wins, best 2 out of 3 win the game. So that's essentially how the game mode works. But now I want to go over some tips that I'd recommend that I heard some other people say. So first one is, if you can, play with a full fire team and get in like a Discord chat. That way you can have communication. It's kind of like playing trials. You don't want to go into that solo. And this is a very good game mode that communication is required in order to get good plays and synchronize motes and all that kind of stuff. So another tip regarding the fire team thing is, if you can, play with someone who's really good at PvP. Maybe they'll be your dedicated invader, and maybe having dedicated fire team roles I think would be really helpful. I'm not going to say that's like a guarantee you need that, but I think if you can have maybe like 1 or 2 people who are really good at PvP and the other 2 mostly PvE, that's about half and half. You have a pretty good split there. You don't have to be a god at PvP to invade, because you can get kills easy, but if you have someone who's already good at PvP and they invade often, then it's probably going to be for the better. Solo queue is a different story, so this is mostly for fire teams. But the next one I wanted to say is about the blockers. So although if you hold out till 15 you can spawn a yellow bar, which is the hardest to kill, it's still not that difficult to get rid of that one. So something better you could do is actually send a blocker every 5 modes to the lowest level, because although they're easy to kill, they're really annoying to kill because you lock the base, and the longer the enemy's base is locked, the less modes they can deposit and the further ahead you get in the game. Now another thing is invasion. Now when you're invading, and it doesn't matter who, but if you're invading the other team, there's 2 times that are probably like the best case scenario, the most beneficial invasion times. One is going to be when the enemy team's progress bar is gray, like as big and gray as possible, because the gray bar essentially means that's how many emotes the enemy team has collected. Meanwhile, the colored blue or red bar indicates how many emotes the enemy team has deposited. Once it's deposited, you can't break the stack, but when you invade, you actually see where everyone is and how many emotes they're holding. So if they have a huge gray bar and everyone has like 10 to 15 emotes and you go and kill all of them, you're going to reset their progress back to 0. And that is going to be super essential for staying ahead in the game and winning each round. Now another tip for invading, not only is the timing important, but if you go over with a full heavy and a full super, you're going to do more damage, you get more kills, and that's the objective of invasions. So either go when the gray bar is at its biggest point, when you have full super, or full heavy, because it's all good idea. Another thing about invading is if the enemy team invades, try to communicate and team shot that invader, because all it takes is one invader to kill your whole team if you're not paying attention or you can't find them or they're a really good invader, and you're gonna lose about 30 seconds to about a minute of gameplay and also any emotes you may have been holding. The next up is kind of easy to understand. Basically it says to spawn the Primeval as fast as possible. That's kind of generic and general, because you want to spawn the evil to get the kill to win the round. But the sooner you spawn the evil, the faster what's known as a Primeval Slayer buff stacks up, and it stacks up to 10. Essentially it's like the longer the Primeval's out and about, the more damage you do over time. So in order to do like the most amount of damage, you want to wait till that buff hits about times 10, but you don't want to wait so long that the enemy team kills their Primeval first. So you just got to keep an eye out on their Primeval's health bar. But in order to do massive amounts of damage, you want to wait until it gets to like 8, 9, 10 stacks, and then that's when you want to use your heavy and your supers and all of these modifiers and buffs and debuffs and stuff, just to get the most amount of damage and almost instant kill them. But also don't take too long, because the enemy team could easily take out their Primeval. And the last tip I have for Gambit is to revive your teammates as much as possible. Not only does it get them back in the action and get you more modes and get you ahead of the game, it just saves you time overall, and time is really important in this game mode. So that's going to be all of the tips that I got for you in this video. So that's going to be it. Basically that's it for the rest of the video. I wanted to tell you how the game mode works, maybe some things you didn't know about it, some tips I'd recommend, and maybe a couple loadouts that may or may not be relevant after Forsaken drops. But that's actually going to be it for the video. Sorry if I mumbled or rambled off a little bit. I tried to write a script, but it's kind of hard to keep to it since you've never done it. But that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. If you did, let me know what you thought and what you learned. And I'll see you in Forsaken. Later.